Guys, is Arc Raiders dying? That is a question that a lot of people are asking themselves, especially Paul Tassi at Forbes, who just released an article stating the game is down 80% of its player base. Let's get into it. Here's the article, guys, that Paul Tassi made. Why Arc Raiders player count is down 80% in 3.5 months. Now, I know, guys, I know. Paul Tassi is a chronic Steam DB watch counter. He's always on that thing. He's always posting about it, especially when it comes to negative stuff about Marathon and negative stuff about Arc Raiders. But he's just doing what gets clicks. I just want to preface that before we get into this discussion. I think it's important to note that we only ever have SteamDB charts as a way to monitor player count in most games. Not a lot of games are letting you monitor whether they're playing on Xbox or PlayStation or PC or a different sort of launcher. The only other way we can really gauge that is by looking at like achievements or something like that, right? Like I think only 0 or 2% of the player base on Marathon right now has the Reach Level 100 achievement. From the very beginning of the article, he says, Arc Raiders has experienced an absolutely tremendous, very fast drop in players on Steam, down from a peak concurrent player count of 466,000 in January to 90,000 today. It's not that it's just a big drop, it's at a big drop extremely quickly. The game is down 80% in just 3.5 months since 2026 started. Now, I think that's because people are just finding other games to play. The content of the game has kind of dried up. It's just going back and forth. But before we really get into my thoughts, I want to finish out the article and then we can discuss. It says, this is of course not a single player game where that kind of fall off is expected, but a departure from the storyline before this, where Arc Raiders had a very, very solid hold on its player base, staying almost even or at times increasing from its launch in October to the 2026 turnover. But something's happened, and it keeps dropping every week. Nearly 90 to 100,000 concurrents isn't bad, certainly, and Arc Raiders is always going to be considered a hit to some degree, given that expectations were far below this, but this kind of drop this quickly is worth studying. Which I absolutely agree. I mean, you can see sort of this trend in this picture attached of the chart from the game launching all the way till then, and then it kind of goes down and fluctuates, and now it's just on this steep decline recently.
It was like,
so one of the big things he notes that why the game the content isn't catching is that new content isn't engaging. There's nothing interesting in terms of like what's being added, such as the enemy variety and the quest, and you're still on those same maps, but the enemies don't add much to what is already happening in the game, right? I believe they introduced 2 new arcs since I last played, and they put the shredders outside of Stella Montis, and that was the big change, and I just don't think that's enough. I also think like
that's why I'm picking it up.
Variety in the enemies isn't as interesting. It's always some sort of drone, flying drone, or ball. I wish they could maybe develop different skeletons for each of the bots that would make the game really inherently, I think, more interesting to combat these drones. But then again, I already think we already have like 2 or 3 spider drones in there, which are the Bombardier and the one that shoots the Shredder. Or not the Shredder, the Gatling one. I forget what it's called already. Admittedly, I haven't played the game in a couple months. I've been on Marathon. Actually, a good example is Marathon has a pretty good in-game content as well, more so than Arc Raiders, as it's more PvP focused. And then, of course, he mentions that the game, there's fatigue. People are kind of getting tired of the extraction shooter market increasing. There's nothing after a while that's growing or changing. And the idea, the core loop of the game is the expeditions, and people aren't interested in wiping their stuff all the time for low incentives, right? You need to have a reason and an engaging mechanic to wipe your character every single time. So he also states here that it's because of a PvE focus, which I absolutely agree. As someone who did every bit of content in that game and was really enjoying the ranked mode, I would have liked if there was more PvP trials in the game that allowed me and other PvP players to engage one another off rip, that wasn't just running around doing a ranked quest that's opening up 100 of the drones that are on the ground to get ranked points. That was the most interesting and competitive the game has ever got, and I don't think it's beyond that. I think that's why you had so many people playing Stella Montis, because it was such a high PvP engaging map. Cheating is a big one in Arc Raiders. Admittedly, I don't know much, but you know, you can kind of see how that aim assist works in the game, and some people were infamous for cheating, and it just wasn't done in the game to handle that. Especially, I mean, I'm just also comparing it to a Marathon. You know, a lot of that's not being handled on Marathon, and it just further plummets both the game's player bases. People need to get a hand on cheating, especially for risking gear, throwing yourself out there, hard-earned stuff that you want to put out, and it's just not worth it when someone that's a cheater can just auto-aim you and kill you. You know, it's just not fun. And then, of course, he lists streamer anti-advertising, which is people like Ninja or other guys who are like, hey, the game is fun, but I'm gonna go play something different because this game has issues right now. And that's admittedly, that's one thing you really need for your game to take off these days, which sucks, but it's just the truth is you need streamers promoting your game and playing the game and saying positive things about your game. And especially you have guys like the likes of Ninja saying, hey, I don't want to play this game. That's going to turn more people off. You know, people want to, unfortunately, they form codependent relationships with their streamers and they want to play the games that they're playing. Now we get to the portion of the video where you guys get my opinion on things, whether you want it or not, and that's okay. In my opinion, I really think Arc Raiders fumbled the bag. I think Embark fumbled the bag. You guys had the chance to be one of the best extraction shooters out on the market, and just, it should have been like pedal to the metal immediately. Like, do you guys recall when Fortnite first popped off and how important those updates were to establishing like a very tight player base? And it was an anomaly. We were never used to getting live updates in a game and changes that were happening as we were playing it. Now, that's something that Embark could have done as well. You have the finance, you have the bag, you have the player base. Push in, push and go hard. Don't take breaks. Pedal to the metal. I understand that like everyone is working, and they can't be, you can't cram someone, especially creative, but like in this unique scenario, you really can't let up. Because there's other games that are going to come out that are going to do what Arc Raiders is doing, but better. We haven't seen it yet, admittedly, but it's going to happen where it's going to become like, hey, Arc Raiders was good, but this is the game to hop on now. Everyone thought that would be Marathon, but Marathon's a little bit too hardcore, a little bit too niche. Same with Hunt Showdown and things like that. But eventually you're going to have an extraction shooter that pops again, and people are going to say, this is the #2 game to play. Similar to like PUBG with Apex and Fortnite and those games, or Overwatch with Marvel Rivals and things of that nature. So I'm really interested to see what shakes out. I hope Embark can shake back because I really love Embark's like their games they put out. I love the finals and I love Arc Raiders, and I want to see them succeed. This isn't a clickbait, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave a comment about your thoughts down below.